What are your thoughts about big pharma versus smaller companies? I was reading one stat that return on research investment by big pharma is like 1.9%,
Mhm.
and return on research investment by smaller biotech is like over 9%. I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was huge difference. So what do you think? What do you think in the future? Do you think we will still have, let's talk about after 10 years, 20 years, we will still have 10,000, 20,000 people, mega biotech or mega pharma companies? Or you think industry will split and smaller entities will lead this biotech revolution that is on the horizon?
I think you will still have some mega conglomerate pharma. Why? Because there's a parallel thread underneath for strategic acquisition, right? So yes, you will see biotechs that will grow and innovate and will blast ahead and have this large ROI because they have small, agile teams. They're a lot closer to the software and tech development model than pharma would. They
Mhm.
can do things with smaller teams. They can pivot very fast in a way that pharma cannot, and they don't have the lift of a larger pharma in terms of their old data or their standardization or government regulation, et cetera. Yes, so but the contrasting force is that big pharma still has a preponderance of the market, right? They still have recurring revenue from existing medicines and ones they can make bigger bets on now. And they still have a war chest, is the way many will use to describe it, that can be used to acquire these smaller players. So there will, I think, will always be this warp and wend. I think it will shift towards the smaller biotechs in that you will see many more of the 500 to 1,000 person companies as tech accelerates them. But I think you will still see the pharma conglomerate model as long as that cash ability to acquire companies exists.
Right. And I think smaller companies currently focus on early stages and then they just get acquired or they out license it. But I do think it's still not an efficient model, even when pharma in licenses it. The efficiency, if you compare it, they have all the bureaucracy around things, and then they have to prioritize because they have more to lose in some cases, right? They cannot experiment on some innovative molecule with like very low probability of success. But smaller players have more bandwidth to take bigger risk. So I think eventually, I don't know if it will happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, pharma companies will take the back seat and smaller companies will really lead this revolution. I think that's how it should be. But biotech has to become more, they should work more in networks and smaller companies leading it. Bigger companies have strengths and when it comes to regulatory understanding, when it comes to money, right? They can always take the position of venture capitalists, what
And
Bayer is doing.
putting more bodies on the problem, right? You can at all times upscale as a pharma. You can say we need to put 500 scientists on there. Boom, there you go.
You're right. So I really like what Bayer is doing. In Germany, they call it Bayer. They have one, I don't know if it's a company or it's like a part of Bayer. They call it Leaps by Bayer. So they invest in all these innovative companies. They established a partnership with Israel government recently and funded these smaller players. So I think that is the future. But you're right. I mean, bigger companies will have their own presence, but they will move towards their strengths more than
So,
innovation.
so I'll offer one other model that I've seen some evidence of as well, that happens in these large companies. So in many of them, the research engine has been so effective and so efficient that they cannot possibly prosecute all their products. Right? They literally have some that will wait and take a back seat for a few years while something else is moving down the development and then clinical pipeline. So what is encouraging to see is oftentimes they will divest of that asset. They'll say, all right, here's, $10 million and this asset, and one of my executives and his team of scientists will split off from our company. They'll fund their own biotech. It stays
Yeah.
connected to our company, but they race ahead with their own thing and their own trajectory in order to capitalize on this otherwise lost opportunity. That's another way in which, to your point, these mega conglomerates will start to, lessen because they will spin off smaller entities. And those entities could be cloud first if they wanted to be.
Yeah. No, that will be super powerful. Imagine 50,000 people company create their own 1,000 companies, right? They have their autonomy, but they still have access to this parent.
The larger resource. Yes.
So I think that would be really powerful.